Welcome to part 3 of the book study. This is going to cover chapters 6, 7, and 8, and the rest of the book um, over the templates and references and things like that. Um, in chapter 6, the main part of chapter 6 is how do we get those words that we've previewed and we've introduced to our students, how do we teach them to pick out those words themselves and learn those words? The chapter starts off with a graphic, and it's a Venn diagram. The Venn diagram is using context on one side and using word parts on the other. And then in the middle, it says it's best to combine both. So basically, what the chapter is saying is we need to teach students how to look at the context of what they're reading and using the word parts of different things. So teaching the word parts, that would be teaching the prefixes, the suffixes, the base words, the roots. These are all things that are going to help our students build on the vocabulary because they know what a prefix of re means to redo, or the suffix ed in the past tense. And then the context. If we're reading about an apple orchard and there's a word that they don't know, they can use the context of, well, they're picking apples. Pulling from those contexts, they will be better to understand bigger words that are in those passages. The instructional strategies that are used within this chapter, something that I found very interesting is a school-wide focus. A lot of vocabulary is just taught in the classroom. The words that students should be learning, for example, analyze. That word can be used and emphasized for the first part of the year within all the content areas. So we're going to analyze the different steps of writing an essay. We're going to analyze the different steps of this scientific experiment. That way that the students are getting those vocabulary words in different content areas all over. When looking at teaching prefixes, there is a big, long list of different prefixes that the book gives, tables. And it breaks it down from the common meaning, examples of it, how many actual words use that prefix, and percentage of people knowing what that actual prefix means. The suffixes were done the same way. They just don't have the breakdown of the percentage. The book also gives common Greek roots. I looked through and seen different words that the roots were used in. That was a very in-depth visual of the different root words in that chapter. And that summed up that chapter. In chapter 7, which is the fifth component, is promoting word consciousness. This was a way in which you can get your students to be excited about learning new words. I took a lot of information from this chapter because I had been doing a few things wrong, and I will get to that in just a moment. The word-rich classroom. The book says that we need to use these words within our classroom in a way that it's not just us standing up in front of the class using the word and making the Charlie Brown walk, 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 walk sound. Because our students are not going to work towards learning what those words mean. A big way to get their interest is to have the students work on word histories. Find out where the word is from. Find out what its history is, as in, how did that word come into existence? Where did it come from? This is a way to spark the interest of students. Another way that you can spark your instances for different word plays. Being able to find different ways to use the word in, for example, jokes and games and puns. Like, these are things that students are going to remember and associate the words that they're learning with words that they've already known. Something that the book goes into detail about are word walls, and I had been using my word wall in my room wrong this whole time. I would pick out all of the words and go over them with my class, and we would talk about them, and then I would just stick the word up on the wall, and that was our word wall of vocabulary. The word wall has an actual very in-depth way of usage within the classroom that many people don't use the correct way. The word wall should be made up of words that the students want to learn from their content. And those words should be used within the class to play games and make sentences and do different activities with that gets the student engaged with learning the vocabulary. Another really big thing about in this chapter was the reading material. The reading material is something that you can give your students the choices that they would like to read. This gets the student more involved with being able to pick out those vocabulary words that they want to know about and learning the different things that they would like to learn within your content. Chapter 8 is examples of multi-components of this routine being put together. Each example gave a very good outline and overview of how it could be used in the different sections for the science, social studies, ELA, and math. I have struggled a long time with doing vocabulary and math, so I pulled a lot out of the geometry lesson on how they pulled different parts of the routines into the vocabulary about the geometry lesson. The end of the book gives reproducible templates for the vocabulary routine, and it gives the very first reproducible that I liked is just a key vocabulary routine. This routine gives the individual the opportunity to remember. We as teachers have to start the vocabulary lesson. We're the ones that need to read and pick out those things that we think are going to be hard for our students to understand, for words or phrases or figurative language. We create that preview list. We let the students know what the backgrounds of those words are. Then we use those words in our activities and connecting those to our content. Then we teach the word in depth by using content words and user-friendly definitions. Then identify opportunities to teach the word learning strategies. So break down those vocabulary words. If there's a prefix or if there's a suffix or if there's a root that your students have already been introduced to, use those prior background knowledges to make sure that your students are understanding what that vocabulary word means. And then promote word consciousness just to get your kids involved with what they're reading. Get them to choose some of the words that they have read through and don't understand. Put those up on your word wall. Get them more actively involved in learning their vocabulary. It gives reference and then some classroom examples of different things that students and teachers have come up with as far as mapping and scaling, the references of where certain things came from. It gives a bunch of the common suffixes and prefixes in those templates as well. And then at the back of the book, it just gives a short excerpt of what KEYS literacy is and how it was produced, and what programs that they offer. It's just not about vocabulary. There are many different things that the KEYS literacy program can teach teachers. Content writing, extended response writing, like grammar, primary comprehension, secondary comprehension. There's just a lot of different things that the KEYS literacy program can teach students and teachers about reading and how we should break it down into different sections. Thank you all for participating in the book study. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on any of the parts of the video.